Hi, I'm Iliana Limon-Romero here with our Orlando City, Orlando Pride, OCB insider, Alicia DelGallo, ready to talk soccer. Very exciting time here in Orlando. We're excited about our weekly Twitter Q&A. We appreciate your patience. We shifted this today to make sure we had full coverage of the Copa America Centenario press conference. Yep. That's coming up soon too. So we've got just a whole bunch of different action. So it's been a pretty busy week stretch for Orlando City, Orlando Pride, and OCB. So I think to start off, let's have you talk a little bit about what we learned from the New England Orlando City match, and I can talk a little bit about the Pride, and we'll go from there. So first up, what were your takeaways from Orlando City's 2-2 draw at New England?
They still have a lot to work on. They're still struggling with the back line, getting back in time, and there's gaps in space between the back of the midfield and the front of the defensive line that teams are able to exploit in transition a lot of times, and we saw that in New England yet again. But they were able to come out with the last-minute dramatics that they seem to be huge fans of this season to pull out at least a result and a point in that game. So not much has changed.
Yeah. Orlando City coach Adrian Heath said he was hoping that was not going to be part of this team's identity, but I think it's getting harder and harder to deny. Yeah. You do have to give them credit. The late game heroics, it's clear this team doesn't give up late in games.
Yeah, that's good. He was saying that last year they would lose games. If they got down, they would lose games by 3 or 4 goals sometimes. So at least this year they're fighting back and fighting to the end.
Yeah, it is a bit of advice not to leave an Orlando City game early necessarily because you could miss out. You absolutely could. So Orlando Pride, also a little disappointing on the road for them, a 1-0 loss at Chicago. This was one that I had an opportunity to cover for us, and a lot of frustration there as well. They felt like, and quite frankly for much of the match, looked like the better team. They let one get away from them. Christian Press, a U.S. national team player, scores a game winner. Gets it just out of reach of Ashlyn Harris, who frankly has been phenomenal so far this season. Right. Tons and tons of saves for the Pride, really kept them in contention in a lot of different games. They started Leanne Sanderson. That was an interesting move. It didn't quite go the way they had hoped. Jasmine Spencer came off the bench, had a really great look at it late, and I think that added to the frustration, the fact that they felt they could really get a lot done. They felt they had an opportunity, and it's one that got away. And unfortunately for the Pride, the season's short. There's 10 teams in the NWSL, so you really don't want to give up some of those road points and walk away with a loss there. But I think that'll probably motivate them. It was not a clean sweep, though, for the Orlando City Soccer Club teams. OCB won a home game. Perhaps more important, 6 MLS players featured in that game. MLS signees who looked pretty good and fought pretty hard in it. And Connor Donovan, player.
Back from an ACL tear for the first time, and he's been back on the training field with the first team as well this week. So he was really excited. Everyone was really excited to get him back on the field and get some playing minutes. But Devon Garcia, red card in that game, so he will be suspended for their match tonight.
Yeah, so it's a mixed bag there, although I would say Adrian Heath was pleased after such a bumpy start for that team. Yeah. It's hard. They're coming together. It's their first season. They've got players who are up with the first team down, back and forth. It's a bit of a challenge, but they were able to get that accomplished, and they were down 10 men the entire second half and still managed to pull it out. So that's always a good sign for them. All right, so we've recapped the week. Now we're ready to look ahead and get some questions from our readers. First up, at Strength of Spear, Garrett Weiss. Strange question. Can you confirm the Heineken MLS soccer commercial was filmed at the Citrus Bowl with Orlando City fans?
Right. So I don't know if everyone has seen these Heineken commercials, but they travel and they feature a different team. And this specific commercial followed Orlando, appeared to be Orlando City fans through the streets of what did not appear to be Orlando in the beginning, and then go into the stadium, and you can tell it's the Citrus Bowl or Camping World Stadium now, and that looks like the home opener. But yeah, so I asked if this was indeed filmed in Orlando, and it was half and half. They filmed some of it at the stadium with real Orlando City fans during a real game, and the other parts that you think might look a little fishy and not filmed in Orlando or not real Orlando City fans, you are correct, because half of the commercial is not. here.
Well, it's good to be part of the promotion. It's good that they want to capture the game day atmosphere. That's a good sign for Orlando that you're going to be featured. That's quite an interesting behind-the-scenes production mix. All right, so our next question, Orlando City SC Brazil, at Blog Orlando City. How's Pedro's recovery? Will we ever see Pedro Kaká Nocerino in the middle? So this is Pedro Ribeiro. So first off, for anyone who missed it, can you update us on what's going on with him?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the answer to that question is probably not, because Pedro will be out for the next few months. He's getting surgery on his back. Originally, when it happened a few weeks ago, they thought that it wasn't as bad as first expected, and he did even come back to training and start training on the field and things. But last night they got some bad news. He went to the doctor again. They said it's an issue with his disc in his back, and he is going to need surgery. So he goes into surgery tomorrow, and he's going to be out for the next few months. With no specific timeline of his return. So unfortunately that question, the Kaká Nocerino Pedro lineup is a big no.
Yeah, highly unlikely. I mean, this works in Orlando City's favor in that it's a long MLS season, but I can imagine with such a young and talented player that you're going to want to rush him back from back surgery. That seems pretty intense, although to note, the regular season ends in late October, and then you have the opportunity of playoffs. So I think as cautious as they have been with all of their injuries, though, I tend to agree with you. It's highly unlikely that we'll see that matchup, that lineup.
Just a blow to their depth. Their depth that they were so proud of early in the season is slowly whittling away.
All right, so at Orlando's City SC Brazil, I read Aurelian Collin might play against us. I was told by a reporter that because we are paying around half, he couldn't play versus us. So, this
paying around half.
Yeah, so this is deals with the salary compensation. Aurelian was obviously one of the highest paid players on the Orlando City roster outside of the designated list, and he moved to the New York Red Bulls. So what are the thoughts on that? Can he face off against Orlando City on Friday?
Yeah, he can. He can face off. It was a transfer. He's allowed to play for the team. I believe last week he couldn't play in the game because he was in Orlando in the morning still and then went to New York, but he's been there for a full week. I've read reports out of New York from various media outlets that say that the coach has said he's a definite possibility to even not just play but start against Orlando City, because he came in, he looks fit, he's worked in well and easily with the team. They like what he brings to the table, and that he will know what to expect from Orlando City's attack.
Yeah, that's definitely a strategic advantage. There's no question he's well rested. He's had an opportunity. Take us back a little bit to this. This is obviously a fan favorite, somebody that some people did not want to see from the club. But what was Coach Adrian Heath's reaction? What did he have to say about this transaction, this decision?
Yeah, basically it was for the team. What the team got out of it was a lot of relief in cap space, because he had about a $500,000 salary, and while they'll have to eat, reports say they'll have to eat up to as much as half or more of that for this year, they're still getting a lot of relief, and they're also opening up an international spot, because Aurelian previously had a green card, a red card. Previously had a green card, but in order to get his wife over here, he got married after he got his green card, so he switched back to a visa so that his wife could join him, and that makes him an international player. So freed up an international spot, freed up a lot of money, and on top of that, Aurelian was sitting on the bench, and he's a veteran. He's 30 years old. He does not want to sit on the bench, so they thought he had a better opportunity to play in New York, where they are hungry for a center back, and it was something Aurelian was excited about. I actually saw him at training the day before, and I'm sure he had caught wind of this maybe, but he seemed unusually happy during that training session. But I've read some Q&As he's done with the New York media, and he has said that he's really excited. He knows a lot of the players on the team. Some of them speak French, so he's fitting in really well.
Well, he's definitely one of the most outgoing players, was really kind and gracious on his way out of Orlando, and it will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens next for him.
Yeah.
All right, so our next question from Kyle Meardo at Meards Beards. Good to see you again, Meards Beards. Has Carlos Rivas made a case to start this weekend? Interesting question.
Yeah, it's a tricky one too because he has performed really well coming off the bench, but there was a game that he started when Molino came off the bench, and it was kind of reversed where people weren't really too happy with how he performed during the game, and Molino came on and gave just a really spark of energy and performed really well. And of course, Winter has been on the wing as well, playing very fast and good and solid and, you know, capable for Orlando City. So I'm not really sure if he's made a case to start. I think he's made a case that he can provide what the team needs when he comes off the bench.
Yeah, I think they've worked into an interesting situation where they feel like maybe Servando Carrasco provides balance, stability, smart decision-making when they insert him, and then Rivas just this explosive burst of energy when everybody's legs are getting dead around the 60th, 70th minute. He can just blow past a defense that's starting to feel the length and the weight of the game. And it'll be interesting to see, too, as it gets hotter and more humid in Orlando, how they tinker with things, how they adjust, what they do. But, yeah, I strong play, but he just may be one of those super subs instead of a true starter, which is not a bad thing.
No. And they're already talking about using the weather to their advantage, by the way. They said hopefully, you know, they're going to come down and it's going to be a little hot this weekend for New York.
That would be
Tires
interesting.
them out.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know if the weather's going to work out this time around, but certainly for the next home game, I think they'll start to feel that edge. One more question from Meards Beers, Kyle Meardo. How do the Pride plan to bounce back next game after a game like last week? I had a chance to talk with Coach Tom Sermani, so I can chime in a little bit on this one. I mean, absolutely frustrated. They're hoping to bottle that frustration and really translate that, clean up some of the mistakes that they made. There's no doubt that every player seemed to understand that they were the stronger team. They missed some opportunities. And, you know, you could be looking at some lineup changes. I think they're going to see what tactically makes sense. They tried starting Leanne Sanderson with the hope that she would really provide a spark earlier in the game and take some pressure off Alex Morgan. That really didn't seem to work out as well as intended because Alex was marked that entire game, as you're fully going to expect her to be with every game she plays. But it was a challenge. So I think you may see some lineup adjustments, but overall, I think it's more a cleanup of mistakes. It's execution. It's adjusting. And it's hard for a team to say it. Nobody wants to say it, but it was really, really windy in Chicago when they played, and the ball was whipping all over the place, and that's something where you haven't played in the venue before and you have the wind changing direction on you. That's a disadvantage.
I know you covered this game. Did you see that they were coming together more than previously?
Yeah, definitely, and talking to the players as well, they just feel like more and more time under their belts has really been a huge help, and that some of the players have remarked they're just amazed at how well they're getting along, how well they're clicking, how seamlessly it's coming together. That's a credit to Tom Sermani as well, who's identified some strengths and weaknesses with all these players and put together a roster that he really believed would excel in this way very quickly.
Yeah.
And they just added the last signee, somebody who they felt could actually help them out quite a bit. So it seems like they feel like the pieces are there, and they're talking with a lot more confidence about what their opportunities could be. I think early on in the preseason they were kind of scared.
Yeah.
They didn't know each other that well, and they hadn't seen all the pieces. They were a little wary of promising anything big, but now they've reached a point where they're extremely disappointed after losses and feel like they let one get away. That's quite a transformation from the preseason when they were telling us, not sure, not going to promise anything yet.
A little surprising, by the way, that their final signee was not an international player.
Right, yeah, there was a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, because they have an international spot available, and Tom kept saying that he was going to sign an international player. He was just waiting to see what they needed, and they decided to go with someone who worked out with them in preseason.
All right, so speaking of international spots, we've got another question here. This one's back to the men's team. Has the coaching staff mentioned anything regarding what position they are looking to fill the international spot with? This is from Orlando City SC Brazil. Good to see you as well. Thank you for reaching out to us.
As usual.
As usual, yes. We're happy to hear from you each week. In terms of the international spot, this is presumably the one left open by Aurelian Collin leaving. So any thoughts on that?
They're looking, I would say if they fill it soon, anytime soon, it would be for a center back or a defender because they're lacking the depth there now. And I have been told by Orlando City coach Adrian Heath that they are looking overseas at multiple options, maybe someone to come in immediately who might only be for the short term, or maybe somebody who they identify and can bring in for the long term to help with the team's future in the next 3-4 years. So they're definitely looking at different options all around, but if it were to be anything, my best guess would be a defender.
It's a popular time for transfer rumors, and I think it's a popular time for Orlando City to be involved in those because they've been players on the international market. So it's interesting to see. I think, what has the tone been, though, when you've talked with them about transfers and the market right now, just this particular window?
This window, they haven't really, I don't get a feeling that they're going to do too much more. If they were to do anything, it would be to identify someone on defense that could come in just for the season and fill that gap that they're missing. But other than that, as far as other movements, I know there have been rumors about Kyle Larin, there have been rumors about other things, but I don't think they're going to make any other movements this window.
It'll be interesting to see. There is another window later that's part of what makes international
soccer. Well, that window will be different.
So interesting. That is a big part of what makes international soccer so very interesting. All right, so we have a couple of late breaking questions that we went ahead and decided to go ahead and group in, even though they came in after the 3 o'clock timeline. So this one's from Eric Cintron. Alir Sinter is the handle. Orlando Pride has been amazing, but do you think Sanderson is better off the bench for us or not? I will give my thoughts. I think it's very similar to the Rivas situation that we talked about. Yeah. She is, I was on board with many people who thought, oh, start her. She's amazing, start her. But it didn't translate in this last game. It didn't really, they were missing the spark that she brought on. I think Jasmine Spencer did a good job of changing direction, changing the tone. She did come on kind of on the late side. That's the tricky thing for coaches, trying to figure out when exactly you pull the trigger. And I understand there are a ton of reasons. There's cards that you have to factor in, and there's also injury situations you have to factor in. It's a tough decision when you put someone in and when you don't. But Leanne absolutely has been far more explosive off the bench than she has been in the game. And we don't have a lot to judge from. It's only been 3 games. So
one start.
One start. 2 off the bench went fantastically. 1 start. So we'll have to see if, knee-jerk reaction would be absolutely put her back on the bench, have her come in as a super sub. I think it's going to be...
Especially with how well Jasmine performed in previous games.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to looking at evaluating the Seattle talent and making a tactical decision on what you think is going to be the better matchup for you. But if I had to guess, I'd say she comes off the bench. Back on the bench, but in a phenomenal role.
Maybe it has to do with fitness. Maybe she just needs, more time to get ready for a starting role.
Entirely possible, or it could just be that she's just a juggernaut off the bench. There are some players who are just fantastic in that way.
She told me she doesn't like to come off the bench. It's a new role for her, so maybe that gave her that extra fire.
Maybe so. Well, if it happens again, if she's had the taste of the start and comes back off the bench, then that also could shake things up. But no doubt she's a huge asset, and I don't think that the last game was indicative of how well this team can perform. So again, I keep saying I want to see more of them because we've only seen 3 so far. It would be good to see more to get a better feel for what they can do. Because she surely is capable of starting, but in terms of best results so far, the best results have been her coming off the bench.
Awesome. Is that it?
We have one more question. Circling back again, this is a little similar to some of what we talked about.
Oh, we already did,
Yeah, earlier on Carlos Rivas, but I think it's still worth noting. We have from Eric Cintron again. Do you think Carlos Rivas is one that needs to start on the left side? So do you think he needs it? Do you think he needs it to perform well?
No. Do I think he needs to start to perform well? Yeah. Clearly not, because he's come off the bench and performed very well. I mean, honestly, I just really think he's like Leanne, explosive off the bench. I don't see that he's done enough and proved enough yet to earn that starting role on a regular basis. But it's good to know that they have someone that can come off and provide a spark like that and can perform at that level. And it's always, Adrian tells me every week, he says, I choose the final players, but they dictate whether they're going to be left off the roster or not based on their play. And you saw that when Molina wasn't finishing, when he wasn't scoring, he was on the bench for that game and came off. So it's very much a weekly, how they perform in practice, what he sees in the game type of thing. And it's such a close, tight competition between so many positions because of the depth, that it's not something that should be ruled out.
Yeah, and I think it's a good problem. We keep talking about this depth, and we said, it's taken a hit so far, but the depth is still very much there. And this is a luxury Orlando City didn't have last season when they were going through their really rough losing stretch, some pretty rough times. There weren't as many people on the bench who they could turn to who might change things up.
They didn't even have a full bench at some point.
Force a spark, could do something that would make someone work for their job. Now they have that, and it's a good problem to have. It's good. You're going to have to manage. It's tough when you're accustomed to starting or believing that you should start, but being able to harness that and direct that and manage that can only be good things for this team. So that wraps up our questions, but we want to talk about this weekend's matchups. Big opportunities. So first up, we've got Orlando City rematch. New York Red Bulls.
Kind of funny. It was New England Red Bulls. Yeah. 2 big rematches in 2 weeks, and they are excited for it. They are looking forward to proving themselves against this team that gave them so much trouble in New York, 3-2, and this time they want to go in and they're tinkering with some things with the back line, but also making sure that their midfield players, the 5 or 6 players in front of the back line, are really focusing on their defensive play to support the back line and support the defensive players, so they're not the only line of defense against these attacking pieces that New York has, like Bradley Wright-Phillips and the other players who have contributed so heavily to turn the season around for the Red Bulls the past 2 weeks. They just beat FC Dallas 4-0. The win against Orlando City really gave them a spark, and now Orlando City wants to quash that.
Well, yeah, they did. Right after that Dallas win, Winter Park native Dax McCarty, who's key leader for the Red Bulls, tweeted, "We're back!"
Yeah.
And obviously they are. Orlando City would like to certainly temper that and deal with that. There are some
Dax
things.
McCarty's throwing some jabs out there, because on Twitter today about Aurelian Collin, he said their loss is our gain.
Yeah, he's not afraid of doing that. And that, it's, I think this market has a special place in him. He obviously grew up here, but it's also highly competitive, and no doubt he would love to come home and get another win. Orlando City obviously would like the exact opposite. It'll be interesting. Who's going to be back in the lineup for this game?
Kaká's going to be back in the lineup, and barring, watch I say that in something. Barring anything happening in the next couple of days, he will be back in the lineup. Molino is expected to be okay, good to go, and but Luke Bowden will not be. It'll be a little too soon for him, hamstring injury.
Still, that's a good core of your piece, and Kaká obviously changes the field, changes everything for the team. Extremely talented passer, just orchestrates the entire flow of the team, and they're still trying to get back to that Portland performance.
They just
at
keep
this
mentioning
point.
They want
that
Portland
gotta
performance.
Bring back that energy. Well, Kaká was coming off injury. He had been well rested. He was really energized and really lit a spark under the entire team. So could we see that again? We'll see. We'll find out.
I think so.
All right, so then we get another home game. Orlando Pride.
I keep thinking we're going to end, and it keeps going.
It keeps going. Orlando Pride. That's soccer in Orlando. It keeps going. Orlando Pride Sunday against the Seattle Reign. So are you looking forward to seeing this team back in action? It's the first game since the magical home opener.
I will be covering. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do. I want to see if playing at home is what their thing is, playing in front of the fans. I want to see the turnout, see if they can keep up the turnout that they brought to the home opener. So it'll be interesting for sure to see what happens.
All right, so it's a 5 o'clock start at Camping World Stadium.
I hate that.
It's okay.
Am I allowed to say that?
You're allowed to say whatever you want. Florida natives obviously are going to take some time Florida residents are going to take some time to get adjusted to Camping World Stadium, but that is the name of the venue.
I'm not a Florida native, and it's taking me some time.
I get it. So Camping World Stadium, that is where they will be facing off Seattle Reign. It'll be interesting to see. I think I would expect a few lineup changes again from Tom Sermani. A lot of fire, even if it's not the exact same size crowd, even if it's half the size crowd. I think
still be good for
that
NWSL.
will still be very impressive compared to other NWSL markets. And these players really want to deliver for those fans. They've been touched by the support group showing up, meeting them at the airport consistently. The Crown has been there, not just for the first game, but for every game they've greeted this team at the airport every single time.
When they come back or when they leave?
Both.
And I have left at the same time as Orlando City before, and I can tell you they don't do that.
Oh no! Let's not get the ruckus in
supporter groups are stepping up.
Fired up. So yeah, no, it's a good amount of support. It will be very interesting to see. You'll have all the core players. So to date, we have not heard of any significant injuries that would alter the lineup, and you're going to have a very fired up team eager to get back on track. And like we said, it's a shorter NWSL season, so less room for error. Very eager to get back on track there. All right, so OCB is playing a few more games. We'll be very interested to see if they extend their win streak, and that is going to be a wrap for us. We would like more reader questions, though, so please continue to reach out to us. Tweet at OS Lions anytime. We'll take the questions anytime leading up to our broadcast. Barring any exceptional press conferences that pop up and get in the way, we will be doing this Tuesday, 3:30 p.m. So be sure to send us your questions and check in at orlandosentinel.com to watch us with Alicia DelGallo. I'm Iliana Limon-Romero. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.